week and a half into preseason. You had a scrimmage on Sunday, and you've had a few practices since then. What's your biggest takeaway maybe from this midpoint of preseason?
The biggest takeaway so far is that you're starting to see a lot of unity, a lot of togetherness, which is something that we preach, especially among the defense. On both sides of the ball, the guys out there competing extremely hard. Obviously, it's been some really hot weather, but you've had guys definitely fight through. And you know what I'm saying, just building that team unity and coming together. And tough times when we're not there, because a lot of guys can really fall out of practice, but we've seen the guys strain and push through, so that's been the biggest thing so far.
Addison, there's been a lot of talk about the depth on the offensive and defensive lines. How does that help you guys out, being able to maybe rotate some guys in and out, give you a little bit more breathers for some of the guys who are up front?
Yeah, well, it helps us in practice for the most part because we're able to get more team reps, and the only way to get better at playing football is to play football, and so we're getting a whole lot more reps than what we've been able to get in the past. And then once you get into the season, when you got guys that you can roll now at the end of games, guys are still fresh, and that goes into at the end of the season because you had guys like Josh Sellerstar and drop last year. They played so many snaps and they were beat up at the end of the season, but we can take some snaps off those guys with the trust that we have in those guys behind them. So that's going to be really good helpful for us on defense.
Coach, kind of building on that depth concept, even Coach Malzahn after the scrimmage said that, we learned, you got a lot of depth there in that group is what he said there. In your mind, what group, defense or offense, obviously you're the defensive guy, but what group do you feel like their depth has increased the most significantly?
I would say linebacker because that's the position that going into the spring ball and after taking over as a defense coordinator, I knew that we needed to add some guys at that spot. And we did not get any transfers in January, which in the end it worked out better because we've had guys like Walter Yates, Cam Moore. They were able to get those live reps, 300, maybe 400 reps over the course of the spring. And then now you add a guy like Ryan Davis and Isaiah Paul that have played a lot of college football. Now you go, instead of having 1 or 2 linebackers, now you all of a sudden have 5 or 6 linebackers. So I think that's the spot where the depth has grown the most.
What have been your points of emphasis on defense since the scrimmage?
It hasn't changed. The standard is the standard, all right, and we're going to uphold that. And like I said from day one, we're going to be disciplined, we're going to be accountable, and we're going to be a tough defense. And just as our approach to practice every day is all about just the effort, the intensity that they're going out with. And now that we're in pass, just seeing the physicality of the guys have been really impressive.
Coach, you guys talked about how the defense was managed to pick up 2 turnovers during that scrimmage. What were your thoughts on those moments, and how do you think the defense kind of stood out or gave you an idea of what you want to do with them going forward this fall practice?
All right, well, defensively, the main thing we're going to do is stop the run. We're going to fake the quarterback and create turnovers. And so we did a pretty good job, especially with those with the first group, stopping the run. We got to do a little better with the second group and stopping some of the quarterback run stuff. And then obviously we've been preaching turnovers. We got a lot of explosive guys on offense, and we think our offense has the ability to be pretty good. So as much as we can get those guys the ball back and be on the sideline, that's the best defense you can play.
Addison, I know Gus has talked about the focus being on close games, or a lot of close games in the Big 12 last year, and he thinks that could be a big factor this year. On the defensive side of the ball, how much of that is something you guys focused on in the offseason, preparing for this camp, to those final 2 or 3 minutes of what you guys needed to do to stop the team and prevent them from scoring?
Situational football is something that we talk about all the time because at the end of the day, that's normally what it comes down to. If you got 2 pretty comparable teams. Now, if you just way more dominant than a team, yeah, it may be a blowout or it may be a 2 or 3 possession game. But anytime you got 2 teams that are pretty comparable, which we're going to have an opportunity to compete in every game that we play this year, it's going to come down to the end at some games. So always talking third down, red zone, turnover, 2-minute drill. That's something that we talk daily with our guys. And obviously, at times we can give them probably more information than what they can handle, but we're constantly hitting those situations. So when we end up in those situations, it won't be foreign to them.
How is Nikai Martinez fitting into your secondary? I know you like guys to learn multiple positions. Is he settling into one of those spots?
Yes, Nikai, he's playing the field safety spot for us, but again, he's a guy that's been in the program. He's a very smart guy, and so he's played multiple spots for us since he's been here. He's going to do the same this fall, but he's really focused on the field safety spot, and really he's back there running the show, and he's one of the smarter guys that we got, and we feel comfortable with him back there.
How is Corey and Patterson fit in as far as your secondary? What kind of element does he bring to the mix, and since you got him this summer?
Oh, obviously he's a guy that can make plays on the ball. So the biggest thing with him coming in the summer, obviously from a mental standpoint, he's been a bit behind, but he's working his tail off, meeting extra, doing what he needs to do to put himself in position. But the biggest thing is just him continuing to learn the system, and then at that point, his athletic ability will be able to take over.
Coach, we just talked about close games such as they were in the Big 12 and that being a focus. In particular, situational football, the red zone, the defense had a lot of strong moments last year, for sure, one of the better in the country. What's unique about preparing for that situation? Because it seems like it might come up a lot, possibly in the coming season. What's the best way the defense prepares for that in practice?
Well, the biggest thing is guys understanding there's only so many different concepts that you're going to get from an offense in the passing game. Obviously, a lot of the running game don't really change much now. It's the same that you get out in the field. So fit and run is the same, but the passing concepts are going to be, they're pretty much universal. You may have one or two teams that do something a little different, and in those instances, that's the stuff that we work that particular week, but we're constantly putting them in position and teaching them the different route concepts, the different splits and everything. But the main thing that we tell those guys and try to get them to understand, in those situations, that's when you have to be the most mentally tough, because at that point, once the team gets in the red zone, you're probably tired. They've driven the field. You're tired. You're mentally out of whack. So now what happens when you're tired? Your technique goes out the window. Oh, you didn't get the call. Just making guys make sure they lock in and focus in those situations is the big deal. So we just continue to press that issue.
So is it safe to say it's more of a mental exercise as much as it is a physical one?
I think it's more mental than it is physical, for sure.
You guys, Addison, we talk about that depth again. That obviously brings up a lot of competition. You guys got guys maybe in the second or third teamers are fighting for those spots. How much does that kind of benefit you to maybe, you don't have to necessarily urge someone to compete. They're actually seeing that they have an opportunity to compete and get a spot like that.
Yeah, I think you just actually, at the end of the day, when you got guys is multiple guys at a certain spot, you got to show up for work every day. You know, whether you're nicked, whether you're bruised, whether you're not feeling your best, you're not at 100%. You know, when I get out of bed this morning, I put my feet on the ground, I got to show up for work. And so that's definitely created, I think that attests to the energy that we practice with, the effort that the guys play with, and just trying to uphold their standard, because they know if they don't, there's a guy right behind them that's fighting his tail off to uphold their standard and have opportunity to play.
Coach, you had that commitment from defensive back at AP Hayward the other day, one of the highest rated recruits in UCF history. Could you just talk about what it was like to bring him in, and just, even though you've only been here a couple years, what has it been like to see the development as far as recruiting as this conference transition has gone on?
Well, obviously taking this job, I knew Coach Malzahn prior to, and I knew he was a big dreamer. And in those initial conversations, he talked about his vision for the program, and that's one of the things that drove me to come here. And once I got here, I kind of started to see that vision, and we've been chipping away. And obviously, Nikai Martinez is one of the guys that helped start this trend, and so we're just continuing to build on it. And you see each year it's getting better and better and better. So we'll continue to build those genuine relationships that we do with the guys, and continue just recruiting like our hair's on fire, as Coach Malzahn would say.
Who's had a good preseason? Is anyone kind of catching your eye, maybe a younger guy or a transfer that you think's had a good 10 days or so?
I would say Malachi Lawrence has done a really good job. Matthew Alexander has done a really good job. Walter Yates is another one that has flashed a lot. And then you got guys like Nikai, he played some of it last year, but he's having a good fall camp at the safety position. Kari and Mari, we finally got both of those guys healthy. They're doing a good job. And really, it's a long list of guys, to be honest with you, man, that the guys I'm really appreciative for the effort and the intensity, the focus that those guys come to work with every day. It's been pretty impressive.
Addison, this is your first chance to be defensive coordinator. How much have you grown as a coach over the last 8-9 months to this point? I mean, what stood out to you about what taking over the defense, and what's really kind of brought you to a point of, to maybe appreciate maybe some of the things that you've been able to do in the coaching staff?
The biggest thing I would say, I'm a people's person, so I have a relationship with the guys in my room, and I've always had relationships with the other guys on the team, but it was kind of surface level relationships. But having the opportunity to stand up in front of 40, 50 young men and some men has been pretty humbling to me, to be honest with you, and just continue to cultivate those relationships and just lead those guys in the way that I go about carrying my business, and hopefully it's something that those guys can take far from football and along in life as they become husbands and fathers.
Coach, what are you looking for in the next scrimmage from the defense?
Stopping the run, affecting the quarterback, and creating turnovers. And with that being said, just those guys continue to play together, and it's all 11. And not just the 11 that's on the field, every guy that's on the sideline. We're going to be as strong as our weakest link. That's something that I tell them all the time, man. We got to bring everybody level up to where we want to be to meet that standard, as coach would say. And so that's the biggest thing. The guys continue to stay together, but keeping the main thing, and that's for one, stopping the run. Stop the run, you have opportunity to affect the quarterback. You affect the quarterback, that's when your turnovers come.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Hey, great stuff. Thank you, Coach.